Hello and welcome. You are watching World Business Report here on News 9 Live, where we get you all the latest from the world of business, economy, finance, technology, entertainment and more from all across the world. I am Krishna Kumar. And we begin with China's economy, which is shining through as the first quarter performance has surpassed all expectations, getting a boost from government policies and rising demand. Surging ahead with a 5.3% annual expansion in the months of January, February and March, exceeding analysts' projections of 4.8%, the data underscores China's efforts to identify challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemic and the recovery thereafter. Despite recent concerns over slowing demand and a property market crisis, the latest figures suggest a notable uptick, contrasting recent declines in import and export activity and a moderation in inflation. Remember, Morgan Stanley raised its 2024 real GDP forecast for China to 4.8% just last week from its previous expectations of 4.2%, but the final tally has come in even above that with a growth of 5.3%. From China to Apple. Apple's reign as the world's leading smartphone manufacturer has taken a hit as South Korea's Samsung has now dethroned the American tech giant, claiming the title of the world's top phone maker. This shift came on the heels of Apple's setback, with the tech giant experiencing a notable decline of approximately 10% in smartphone shipments during the first quarter of the year 2024. This report tells you all about it.
Apple has lost the title of world's top phone maker, overtaken by Samsung. That's according to figures out over the weekend from research firm IDC. It estimates Apple phone shipments dropped about 10% over the first quarter of this year. That saw its market share slip to 17.3%. The iPhone maker appears to be suffering as rivals step up competition. South Korea's Samsung launched new flagship models over the period, driving a strong rise in sales. Its market share rose to almost 21%. China also looks like a problem for Apple, with industry experts estimating its sales there were down by almost a quarter in the first 6 weeks of the year. Some companies and government agencies are restricting use of its phones in the country over national security concerns. Those moves mirror US government restrictions on Chinese apps on security grounds. Local brands are also upping their game. Xiaomi is now closing in on Apple in third place with over 14% of the global market, while Huawei is gaining ground too. Its latest flagship phones have been hailed by Chinese media as a triumph over US sanctions on the firm.
Elon Musk-owned electric vehicle maker Tesla faces a major workforce reduction, with plans to lay off over 10% of its employees across the world. This move comes amidst a challenging landscape marked by declining sales and heightened competition in the electric vehicle market, indicating Tesla's response to identifying evolving market dynamics.
Tesla will lay off more than 10% of its workforce. That's according to an internal memo seen by Reuters on Monday. The electric vehicle maker is facing soft demand in a highly competitive market and a price war. The world's largest automaker by market value had 140,473 employees globally as of December last year. The memo did not say how many jobs would be affected. CEO Elon Musk said in the memo, "It is extremely important to look at every aspect of the company for cost reductions and increasing productivity." Tesla did not immediately respond to a request for comment. The automaker is due to report its quarterly earnings on April 23rd. It's braced for a slowdown in 2024 after years of rapid sales growth. It reported a decline in vehicle deliveries in the first quarter. That was its first in nearly 4 years. The company has also ended plans to produce an inexpensive car, meaning it abandoned one of Musk's long-standing goals to make affordable EVs for the masses.
Now, amidst the ongoing tensions between Iran and Israel, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has summoned his war cabinet for the second time in less than 24 hours over Iran's missile and drone attacks. The head of Israel's military said that the country would respond to Iran's weekend attacks, whereas many Western nations have urged Israel to avoid an escalation of the conflict. International pressure has also mounted from allies, urging restraint amidst tensions, emphasizing the importance of strategic decision-making to prevent any major catastrophe going forward.
Debris from an Iranian rocket littered this part of the desert in southern Israel, where Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu faced growing pressure from allies on Monday to show restraint as he considered how to respond to Iran's weekend missile and drone attack. A government source said Netanyahu met with his war cabinet Monday for the second time in 24 hours following the Iranian strikes.
This is an Israeli decision to make, whether and how they'll respond.
White House National Security spokesperson John Kirby on Monday said Washington was not involved in Israel's decision on if and how it might respond. The weekend attack, involving more than 300 missiles and drones, caused only modest damage in Israel and no deaths. Most were shot down by Israel's Iron Dome defense system, and with help from the U.S., Britain, France, and Jordan.
President Biden instructed the United States to defend Israel to the maximum extent possible and defeat that attack, and we did. With the support of our partners, the United States enabled Israel to spectacularly defeat it.
And now those allies were urging Netanyahu not to raise tensions any further.
The United States is committed to Israel's security.
From the Oval Office, President Joe Biden affirmed Washington's support for Israel. Speaking in Parliament, UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak said he planned to speak with the Israeli leader.
I will also shortly be speaking to Prime Minister Netanyahu to express our solidarity with Israel in the face of this attack and to discuss how we can prevent further escalation.
Iran launched the attack over a suspected Israeli airstrike on its embassy compound in Syria on April 1st that killed 7 Iranian Revolutionary Guards officers, including 2 senior commanders. Italy, which holds the rotating presidency of the group of 7 major democracies, raised the possibility of the G7 discussing new sanctions against Iran following the attack.
The attack against Israel has been a big mistake.
In an interview with Reuters, Italian Foreign Minister Antonio Tajani said new sanctions would need the backing of all the G7, which includes Italy, France, Germany, Canada, Japan, Britain, and the United States.
We need to be very prudent. We need to work for a de-escalation.
He suggested any new sanctions would be focused on individuals rather than whole nations.
Oil prices took a dip as market sentiments eased after Iran's weekend attacks on Israel. Remember, Iran's attack involving over 300 missiles and drones marks the first assault on Israel by another country in over 3 decades. It raised concerns about a broader regional conflict affecting oil traffic through the Middle East. This special report tells you more.
Oil prices fell on Monday. Markets dialed back risk premiums following Iran's weekend attack on Israel. One analyst told Reuters that the limited scale of the assault raised hopes that it wouldn't spark major escalation. International benchmark Brent crude fell over 1% to under $90 a barrel by mid-morning in Europe. Benchmark US oil futures saw similar declines. Iran's action involved more than 300 missiles and drones and was the first attack on Israel from another country in more than 3 decades. But the attack caused only modest damage, with missiles shot down by Israel's Iron Dome defense system. Even so, it raised concerns about a wider regional conflict affecting oil traffic through the Middle East. Iran said it was retaliation for an airstrike on its Damascus consulate. Israel has neither confirmed or denied it struck the facility. One leading analyst said there is now plenty of uncertainty, and oil prices could be further impacted by how Israel responds. Iran currently produces over 3 million barrels per day of crude oil and is a major player within OPEC. Analysts said supply risks included more strictly enforced oil sanctions. They added an Israeli response could involve targeting Iran's energy infrastructure. Oil benchmarks had risen on Friday in anticipation of Iran's attack and reached their highest level since October. Analysts were widely expecting at least a short-lived rally in prices this morning. However, they said a major long-term impact would only come if there was evidence of a material impact on oil supplies.
Even as tensions escalate between Iran and Israel, global airlines also encountered disruptions to flight routes following Iran's missile and drone attacks on Israel, making it more challenging for flights between Europe and Asia to navigate. Here's more.
Iran's attack on Israel has ramped up tensions across the Middle East. It's also sparked chaos for the world's airlines. The attack by more than 300 drones and missiles prompted carriers to cancel or reroute many flights. Big names affected include Qantas, United Airlines and Air India. Over the weekend, Germany's Lufthansa said it was suspending flights to many destinations in the region. Researchers at Ops Group, which monitors airlines and airports, say it's the biggest single disruption to the air travel industry since the attack on the World Trade Center in 2001. Now avoiding Iran is a major headache for airlines flying between Europe and parts of Asia. They will have to reroute via Turkey or Egypt. However, some restrictions imposed after the attacks have now been lifted. Israel, Jordan, Iraq and Lebanon have all resumed allowing flights over their territories. Major carriers in the region, including Emirates, have since said they will resume operations. What isn't known yet is whether the unrest will hit demand for air travel. It has so far remained robust, despite the conflicts in Ukraine and Gaza.
Now, the U.S. House of Representatives is gearing up to deliberate on aid packages for Israel and Ukraine separately this week, as confirmed by Republican Speaker Mike Johnson. This move comes after 2 months after the Senate's approval of a bill merging assistance for both nations, highlighting likely divergent approaches in addressing their respective needs.
There are precipitating events around the globe that we're all watching very carefully, and we know that the world is watching us to see how we react. We have terrorists and tyrants and terrible leaders around the world like Putin and Xi and in Iran, and they're watching to see if America will stand up for its allies and in our own interest around the globe, and we will. What we'll do is bring to the House floor independent measures. We won't be voting on the Senate supplemental in its current form, but we will vote on each of these measures separately in 4 different pieces. We will vote on the Israel aid, on the aid to Ukraine, on the aid to the Indo-Pacific, and then another measure that has our national security priorities included, and that has some of the things with regard to the loan lease option and the Repo Act and some other sanctions on Iran and other measures that we've been talking about here for quite some time.
On Wall Street, where U.S. stocks faced a major dip as an early lift from a strong retail sales report eventually succumbed to a jump in Treasury yields and concerns about rising geopolitical tensions in West Asia. This Reuters report gets you all the lowdown on all the action on Wall Street.
U.S. stocks closed sharply lower on Monday, reversing an early lift following a strong retail sales report. The Dow dropped more than 0.6%, the S&P 500 slid 1.2%, and the Nasdaq plunged roughly 1.8%. After a Friday sell-off, stocks opened higher after data showed retail sales increased more than expected in March. But Crew Advisors partner Louise Gowdy-Wilmering says that while the headline number was strong, consumers are cutting back on major purchases due to higher interest rates.
When you look under the hood, what we're seeing is while consumers are definitely spending money in restaurants and bars and supplementing with grocery sales, they are definitely stepping back from furniture purchases, appliance purchases, and some of those bigger ticket items, which certainly many people finance. So with the advent of rates looking like they are higher for longer, maybe this will slow some of those inflationary numbers in the data.
Stock gains faded later in the session over concerns the hostilities between Israel and Iran could continue to flare. Treasury yields jumped, with the benchmark 10-year note hitting its highest level since November. In company news, shares of Goldman Sachs rose nearly 3% after its first quarter profit beat Wall Street estimates, fueled by a recovery in investment banking that lifted its earnings per share to the highest since late 2021. Shares of Apple fell more than 2% after data from research firm IDC showed the company's smartphone shipments dropped about 10% in the first quarter of 2024. Shares of Tesla tumbled more than 5.5% after the EV maker said it will lay off more than 10% of its global workforce, according to an internal memo seen by Reuters. And shares of Salesforce tumbled more than 7% after Reuters, citing a source, reported that the company was in advanced talks to acquire software company Informatica.
U.S. retail sales exceeded expectations with a slight uptick in the month of March, particularly driven by a surge in online purchases, emphasizing the U.S. economy's performance as it concluded the first quarter. The data further provided additional confirmation of a remarkable economic foundation that the U.S. economy can now build upon. Take a look.
U.S. consumers continue to defy expectations. A Commerce Department report out Monday showed retail sales rose 0.7% in March, blowing past economists' estimate of 0.3%. Data for February was also revised higher to show sales rebounding 0.9% instead of the previously reported 0.6%. Robust job gains have helped power spending, even in the face of higher prices and borrowing costs. That's confounded predictions of distress among consumers, especially those in lower-income households. The latest Bank of America credit card data showed lower-income spending continues to outpace that of higher earners, boosting sales, online purchases, and gas station receipts. Sales at bars and restaurants, the only services component in the report, also rose. Economists view dining out as a key indicator of household finances. But there were some pockets of weakness. Receipts at car dealers fell, as well as at furniture stores, likely as higher mortgage rates constrain home purchases. Sales at sporting goods, hobby, and bookstores also dropped, suggesting that households continue to focus on essentials and are cutting back on discretionary spending. The robust report prompted economists at Morgan Stanley to peg their first quarter GDP estimate at a 2.7% annualized rate, up from a 2.4% pace. It also bolstered expectations that the Federal Reserve could delay cutting interest rates until September.
Now, California has seen a major leap forward in sustainable energy infrastructure with the launch of a massive battery plant near Los Angeles, slated to become one of the world's largest upon its activation later this year. In a bid to boost the state's power grid, this development aligns with California's ambitious climate objectives, marking a crucial step towards achieving renewable energy targets. Take a look at this.
This major battery plant near Los Angeles will be among the largest in the world when completed in early 2025.
This project at 680 megawatts will be able to power about 680,000 homes for 4 hours.
Calpine's Nova Power Bank promises to shore up California's power grid and help the state meet its ambitious climate goals. The billion-dollar power bank is part of a U.S. storage boom that centers on California and Texas, the two states with large amounts of wind and solar energy. Storing power is vital to the expansion of renewable energy because it will help stabilize the grid. Calpine's strategic origination manager, Emily Precht, explains.
When people get home from work and they plug in their electric cars, they turn on their dishwashers and their air conditioners, there is a high demand for power. And at that same time, the sun's going down, there's not as much solar production. And so having something that saves the power from the middle of the day when there's low demand, moves it to a higher demand period, will help make the grid more resilient. It'll help prevent any sort of power interruptions that we've had in past years.
The 680 megawatt battery bank is big even for California. The Golden State boasts about 55% of the nation's power storage capacity. That's according to data from the U.S. Energy Information Administration. Calpine is bringing online 620 megawatts of the bank in 2 phases starting summer 2024. It will open the remaining 60 megawatts in 2025. Battery projects in the hundreds of megawatts are becoming more common. Such large systems already exist or are underway in Florida, Australia, the United Kingdom, and China. More than a decade ago, California became a pioneer when it mandated that utilities begin procuring energy storage. The state needs about 50 gigawatts of battery storage to meet the goal of getting all of its power from carbon-free sources by 2045. It currently has about 7 gigawatts of storage. Mark Rothledder is the Chief Operating Officer at the California Independent System Operator, which manages the state's electric grid.
There's other jurisdictions that are going through this transformation, but I'd say California is leading the U.S. in terms of that transformation between the diverse resources it has, wind, solar, geothermal, and now storage kind of helps it get through and kind of balances it out and shifts those energy around when you most need it.
5 years after a devastating blaze engulfed the iconic Notre-Dame Cathedral in Paris, in France, restoration workers and artisans are in a race against time to complete the work of a lifetime in reconstructing this symbol of Parisian history and culture. Have a look.
The reconstruction of Paris's Notre-Dame Cathedral is nearing completion 5 years after a major blaze ravaged the iconic monument. On April 15, 2019, a major fire broke out at the cathedral. The roof burst into flames, engulfing the spire and almost toppling over the main bell towers. The day is still seared into the minds of Parisians. Albert Cohen says he was cycling over a bridge when he saw the flames. I was able to get close on my bike, and I was thinking it was going to be the end of Notre Dame, he says. But the scaffolding, which has surrounded the cathedral's facade since the start of reconstruction, is slowly disappearing, and a public reopening is in sight. Some 500 workers have helped restore the monument. Emma Roux is one of them. The stained glass artisan was first called to help remove Notre Dame's stained glass windows. The stint then grew into restoration work. She calls their efforts the work of a lifetime.
There's been a good side since we rediscovered the monument. We were able to conduct archaeological digs, which we couldn't have done, and we made exceptional discoveries. And even in terms of the paintings, cleaning up the paintings, they found things that were hidden underneath the dirt. This could have been revealed during a partial renovation work, but now we are lucky to have a global vision of what Notre Dame was before.
Notre Dame officials say the cost so far has been over $587 million, and thanks to massive donations, there will be money left over to keep investing in the building. It remains unclear what exactly caused the fire. French authorities have said an electrical fault or a burning cigarette may have been responsible. The reopening is scheduled for December and is currently running on schedule, according to the official leading the project.
Tempers flared in the Parliament of Georgia as legislators engaged in a physical altercation amidst contentious debates over a proposed bill on foreign agents. The ruling party's push to advance this controversial legislation, condemned by Western nations and sparking domestic protests, ignited clashes within the parliamentary chambers of Georgia, underscoring the deep divisions on the issue. Take a look at these dramatic images. right, away from that to the latest on the Olympic torch and its journey. Bear in mind, we're just months away from the 2024 Olympics in Paris. Take a look at the journey of the torch. As the countdown begins for the Paris 2024 Olympics, the torch for the most awaited games was lit by the sun's rays in a dress rehearsal in ancient Olympia ahead of the official ceremony that will mark the final stretch to the games in Paris and France. A Greek actress playing the high priestess used a parabolic mirror and the sun's rays to ignite the torch in this final rehearsal.
Sto pronto, sto pronto.
Now, setting the stage for an exhilarating month, Asia witnessed the inaugural roller skating and running marathon unfurling in the heart of Shanghai's Huangpu district. The international event is part of a global tour promoted by the World Roller Skating Federation, with Shanghai hosting the first of the 6 stops. The top category at this event offers a prize money of $10,000, attracting more than 400 professional skaters from across the world. The China Roller Skating Marathon Open in Shanghai gets nearly 1,000 participants from across the country. This event is the first in Asia to integrate roller skating and running events, allowing professional athletes and enthusiasts to compete together. And that's all we have time for in this edition of World Business Report. Thank you so much for watching. This is Krishna Kumar signing off.